It is the GAA Social on BBC Sounds. We're back again with an interview with a fine young man in front of us. Although you know, I did have to double check his age.
I actually didn't Google his age because the last commentary I heard, one of the opening lines from the commentator was the very, very, very experienced.
Oh, it's harsh.
And I thought, he couldn't be that old, could he? And I deliberately didn't Google.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, that wasn't why I did it. I just, because this person's been about a long time, I thought, like, but he's not old, but he's been about a long time. Still in his 20s.
Seasoned.
Seasoned. Good word, man. Good word. Seasoned. 29-year-old Conor Whelan, Galway hurler, going well so far. One game at a time, don't get carried away, etc., health warnings, all the rest. But showing great signs, just the team and yourself as always in general. 29 years of age. And the reason we probably say that is because you started playing for Galway when you were 18. Seniors we're talking about.
Yeah, it's my 12th season now with Galway seniors. So
it's probably not going to happen again, bar very, very few people. Just that gap between minor and senior physically seems to be.
Yeah, I think going forward, I don't think there will be many cases of it. I think, from my perspective, I suppose I actually made my senior inter-county debut before I made my under-21 inter-county debut with Galway. So yeah, it was just fairly unique how it played out.
But has to be said, you were asked to play and you said no at the start.
Yeah, I was in college in Limerick and I suppose I was just probably struggling a little bit to transition into college in Limerick and I suppose commuting back for inter-county training down top of it just wasn't the right timing and that was, I suppose there was a pre-season on the horizon there as well, so I suppose I was fortunate enough that the call came again in April. That time the club season and the inter-county kind of coexisted, so you played your league games first with the county and then you went back and played one or two club championship games.
I'm just curious, it was Anthony Cunningham at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah, Anthony.
So did he ring you?
He rang me, yeah. So he rang me the first time I think I was going to the cinema in Limerick and I had a missed call from a number I didn't have and I rang him back afterwards and he just asked me if I'd come in and thought about it for a bit and just didn't really think it was going to work out, so left it off.
You didn't make the call on the way to the cinema, so you said, hang on.
I did watch the movie first.
Let me think about it, okay? I'm just curious because, I mean, presumably most 18-year-olds who are mad about hurling or football and they're asked to play inter-county, like it's yes all day long.
Yeah, I suppose I probably felt at the time that it wasn't the right time. I think I felt I needed another bit of time. And yeah, I suppose in hindsight, it was the right decision. Ultimately, if I hadn't got the call again, it probably would have been the wrong decision. But look, Anthony was great to me. Like he was, even as I came in as a young lad, I always wanted to play. And that was something that I spoke about. Like when I was coming in, I was like, I'm not coming in just to be part of the group. Like I want to play.
Right.
And just the belief that he had in me and Eugene Cloonan as well, like it's massive belief in me and just gave you I suppose as a young lad coming through, that's all that you want. Like I think sometimes that's lost, that like all you want is your management and those around you to believe in you and to believe that you can do it, and then ultimately it's up to you to go and do it. Like
yeah, and a few months later you played an All-Ireland final. Close, didn't quite work out. Kilkenny ended up winning that time, but
6 points up at half time.
Yeah. But the experience, Conor, like I mean, your normality is fairly abnormal, isn't it? When you think about it as an 18-year-old at that stage.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I don't think you probably processed how big it was, I suppose. I think I can remember like the following day afterwards getting up and like I was so young that like I was walking around the street. I actually had my hurl with me the following morning, like after an Ireland, just walking down the street with a hurl and a ball. Like it's like, you're just that young that you know, I wasn't really drinking that much, or like I suppose you didn't really realise the gravity of it. And I think that's one of the things of being so young, is that you just go and you play. Like, you're not concerned with the occasion, or, you know, there's no weight of history or anything like that. You know, sometimes that, I suppose, when you get older, you realise that these chances don't come around again as much. Like, I think my first 4 years I played in 3 All-Irelands, and like haven't played in one since. Like, so I think at the time you just probably take it for granted a little bit as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, it was special memories and special opportunity to get, and look, at ultimately you didn't get across the line, but I think those experiences probably made 2017 that little bit more special as well.
Absolutely, and no doubt we'll come to 2017. What age were you when Armagh won the All-Ireland, Dáithí?
2002, 26.
26, yeah, because Ronan Clark played full forward in that team, and I was living with him at college at the time, so he just turned 19.
You just talk away. I'm just going to make sure that's right.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to keep talking?
Yeah.
You do the counting? Okay, okay.
Yeah, 26.
What is your real age, Joshie? So, did you feel part of it, Conor, in a way?
I did, definitely, yeah. Definitely, like, I think from the moment I came in, like, the lads were very good to me. Like, I suppose a lot of them would have hurled with my first cousin, Niall, that passed away. So, like, there was that connection there. And Davy Burke, like, would have very much taken me in under his wing. And I did feel very much part of it. I suppose it's just, you're just not used to, like, so that game was my third game ever with Galway. Like, so you're not even used to, like, what do lads even do after a game? Like what's normal here for after a game? Like, because this is only your third time ever being part of a game of Galway, like, you know, and it just happens to be the biggest hurling fixture, like. So yeah, it was just unique, I suppose, really. Just unique how it all happened. And yeah, there's definitely elements that you think the stars aligned. Like, I think the week before we played Cork, which was the All-Ireland quarter final, like, we were playing a training game down in Thurles, and my girlfriend is from Gort, and I was up at her house, and like, whatever happened, I forgot my hurl, and like, when I came out to the car in the morning, I'd no hurl there, and I'd no boots either. And we were playing a training game down in Thurles, because we were playing there the week after against Cork. And like, I was like, Jesus, like, this is a fairly big training game here, like. And so one of my best friends lives in Gort, and the bus was going from Gort. It was going from the Lady Gregory. So I went up to the hotel, the Lady Gregory, and I had about 20 minutes, I'd say. So he lives in the town of Gort. So I ran down. It's about a 10-minute run, I'd say. I ran down to his house, and his house, like, I'd have been there over the years, like, so it'd be kind of very informal, like. So just opened in the door, and there was no one around, and I went into his back kitchen where I knew he had his hurls, and I pulled out like a couple of different hurls, and he had this brand new Clancy hurl, but it was an inch short. It was 32 and I usually use a 33, so I just took that hurl and I brought it, and then Tex Callan, who's the kit man with Galway, he gave me a grip for the hurl, and I was literally gripping it up in the dressing room before we went out to play the training game. And then I had no boots, so I had to go around and ask a few different lads if they had a pair of boots. And David Collins, who was the captain, had a pair of, I actually still wear them, they're called Adidas Incursa boots. So he gave me those boots, and sure, went out in the training game, and I think I got 3-3 that day, and I was just like, Jesus, like, in terms of preparation, probably not the best, but so I ended up buying the pair of boots off David Collins as well afterwards. So
Did you keep the hurl?
I did keep the hurl, yeah, I kept the hurl, but it was an inch short, so that phase kind of passed out as well. Mm. So yeah,
you went back to 33 instead of 32.
Back to 33,
then.
Yeah,
right, yeah. Wow, that's
just mad.
That's, I mean, we started off going, yeah, I was a bit unconventional, 18 years of age, but like you
was really unconventional.
Really, I mean, you're just upside down at this point, man, you know. This is how not to be an under-county hurler in the presence of Conor Whelan. Isn't it refreshing to hear a wee bit of that, Oisín?
Things have changed a lot.
Yeah.
I've changed a lot in that time. I was just thinking about going around and even having the, like, if I was in that situation, I'd be nervous about that. Like, let's say geezer in the room. Like I'd be nervous about going to him asking for a pair of boots because I'd be afraid of how that would reflect on me. Was there any of that for you?
I don't think Anthony was in the room at the moment. It was kind of very much like, there was two teams, so there was the Maroons versus the Whites, so like it was kind of, we're in our separate teams, and you're just sure at that stage, like you haven't got a pair of boots, like, so you have to put the ego
do whatever, yeah,
and ask, like. But I definitely think that there is space for, obviously not that, but the unconventional or the laid back characters as such. Like, I think sometimes we over like prepare, or we overstate, like, say you take a panel of 35 lads, like there's going to be lads who are relaxed, there's going to be people who are very rigid in their preparation. I think the space for young lads coming through to be themselves, I think is something that's probably gets lost sometimes. Like, I think that's so important that, like, each person is their unique person. They've had their preparation that has led them to be selected to be on this panel. So, like, obviously there's upping the standards and making sure that they're getting to the level, but how they get to that level is, if that makes sense, like allowing them that space to be themselves, I suppose, really, I think is...
Yeah. I think that makes total sense, because a lot of people, I do see a lot of lads now, and they feel as if it has to be the gym every day. It has to be, the notes in the notebook. It has to be all of these things, the Roy Keane sort of nothing's good enough sort of scenario in order for you to make it. Whereas, as you say, if you've got all those different characters, all those different people, 40 different people in a room, think of the more of, like, there's going to be complex characters, that's first and foremost, but there's also going to be a plethora of different unique personalities.
Yeah, definitely. And I think front and centre of that is the enjoyment piece, like, and I think that actually gets lost sometimes in high performance sport, where, I've played seasons there where you're looking back afterwards and saying, like, I didn't really enjoy that, like, which is the direct opposite of why you started playing the game. And obviously the standards are as high as they can possibly be in the training level and the games and all that, but like the enjoyment piece is front and centre. And like any of the best seasons I've had, it's just like, when I think about them, it's just been pure enjoyment, like. And I think that's what I always say to young lads coming through, is like, just keep enjoying it, like obviously Leinster finals, All-Ireland finals, quarterfinals are big games, like, but if you're in the mind where you're enjoying that, it comes a lot easier. Whereas I think if, the pressure to perform and trying to get to the level, and as you're talking about the Roy Keane and the 1% and all this, like, I just think sometimes that can actually squeeze out the enjoyment out of it, and it just becomes almost a chore, like.
But does it lead to the pressure of performance, really? The way you described that game against Cork, I mean, if you didn't hit 3-3 that day and, were taken off and didn't play well, and then all of a sudden the revisionism brings in, he wasn't prepared, didn't even have his boots, didn't even have his hurl, this guy's just not going to be culturally fit in. There's a space, if you're good enough, that people make you play in the grey a little bit there, but I just wonder, is there room for someone to be a bit more laid back?
Well, I think that's the extreme.
So I definitely get that. But
don't try this at home.
Yeah.
But you definitely do see, teams. Now, I just want to be careful how I say this, but I think there is a perception, and it could be false, actually. It actually could be false even from within, that this is how we're meant to behave. This is how I'm supposed to prepare to perform. This is the quite, don't do this here, be seen to be do this here, don't do interviews, head down, that kind of stuff. And that's all fine, like, because of different things, horses for courses. But I just wonder, is there room for that kind of, those real different personalities?
Yeah, I think definitely. And I think ultimately, like, I think that's what people want to see, like, is they want to see the personality, really.
People love seeing that, Conor. Like, I mean, people love seeing that. Like, Ben O'Connor taking Cork at the minute, he comes out and it's quite rash, his stuff that he says, but like, people love it for it, because it comes across so authentic. And when you get players who just, it looks as if they're just nearly, not mavericks, but just playing off the cuff, and it's not that, because they're clearly very talented to go into that and work hard at their talent and developing it. But I just I think that is the bit that gets the normal person buzzing when they see a bit of personality on the pitch. And I would find it very difficult to drill down what that actually means. But you don't see an awful lot of it. Or am I just completely getting that wrong?
Probably don't see as much of it as what we would have been used to, because there are so many people who feel as if they must be in a certain way. But I still think it's there.
Yeah.
I still think it's there.
So is it suppressed, Oisin? Or is it just like suppressed to the outside world?
But I think as an individual, sometimes we suppress it.
Right.
Sometimes we don't want to put ourselves fully out there.
You see, that's the bit that I'm getting at here. I think why is that? Why do you think that is?
Because I don't think people are comfortable enough in their own skin or who they are, and they're a little bit unsure.
Yeah.
And they want. It's much easier to fit in to what people expect almost. I would say the reason why I know that is because I spent a lot of time just trying to be that, whereas it's obvious that I wasn't.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time because I was masking other things. I'm not going to go down there just at the minute, but a lot of what I did was putting on a mask in order to do exactly that, to fit in, to not really stand out. But
then putting your collar up on Ulster final day like Eric Cantona was probably the opposite. In fairness, now.
Yeah, but that's the mask, you see.
Yeah. So yours nearly flipping it, be nearly loud. That's the focus.
I think so.
Really,
I think like I always say, if I had to get my hands on a pair of pink boots in '99, I would have worn them. But I do think that was part of the thing, because like when you look at somebody who's got the collar up or they have this bit of something about them, you think, fuck, they're all right. I wasn't too worried about them. Whereas in actual fact, what was going on in the background was a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So how do you disguise that? Well, you disguise that by walking in the change rooms, and you go onto the pitch and you let people see, right, I'm wearing my collar up, I'm a bit different.
But do you think that aided your performance?
I don't think it hampered it.
Yeah.
Don't think it hampered it. I also think that whenever you do stick your collar up, or you wear the boots or the glove or whatever it happens to be, you put yourself under a little bit of pee to perform, and I do think sometimes that's not a bad thing.
But your personality, I don't think, is the same, or what I would say is covers the majority of intercounty football hurlers. Even parking the gambling aside, I would say I remember. This is how long ago this was, that it was the day the British Army were moving out of Crossmaglen, and you were getting in the team bus to go to, and so it's an All Ireland semi-final or final. I can't remember what it was. So I was really, really young. Don't even think I was working in that sense. And Conor Macaulay was the reporter who now works for RT, used to work for BBC, and he was doing an interview with the British Army moving out of Crossmaglen. I'm sure you're aware. Obviously, Conor was a lot going on at that time, and you did an interview with him as the players in the background were chucking the bags into the bus to go and play in All Ireland, and you were like, oh. But I was able to see the raw cuttings of that before the interview started, and Conor was like, "You okay?" That's dead on. I know, bar. So, most people would not be doing that, in ahead of a big football match. Yeah,
well, I think also, like, I always used to say about the media thing. I know we've talked about this before, but the media thing, and for me, it always brought focus. Because if we were playing in, no disrespect, but if we were playing in the junior relegation playoff, BBC aren't going to be sticking a microphone in front of my face wondering how we're going to get on. Do you know what I mean? And so the bigger the games, the bigger the media, the bigger the focus. And I think that used to help. And I've talked to other players about that as well. It used to help in the lead up to games because instead of taking the focus away, it used to go, right, there's instead of one interview, there's 10 interviews, and the focus was, and there was more access to players, Conor, back then. But I said the more interviews you did, the more focused you were almost. Yeah. And that's probably one of the reasons why I found it very easy to do that then.
Right. But again, do you think is that more abnormal than normal in terms of the player culture?
I only think it's abnormal because a lot of players feel as if they must be a certain way.
Yeah. See, I think that's it. Well, I think it's just the norm. The norm changes through time. But I think that's it. The norm jilts a different direction. That becomes the norm. The more traditional.
So when we asked Conor Whelan to do the the podcast,
yeah,
like most 75% of players now would fend it off. Would find some way to fend it off, as in, we'll do it at a different time, we'll do it at the end of the season or whatever. And that's fine.
Yeah,
I find that 100%. But I do think also that people stepping up, for us to see the different personalities, for what makes people tick, and even for you to say that, I think when young players who are coming up, hear that, it's a lot easier to go into the change room and spend the next 12 years being yourself than it is trying to go in and trying to be somebody that you're not. That's, for me, that's a lot easier. And even just that.
I think the media thing is a bit overstated too. Like, I think, like, you're looking at, the Irish rugby players there at the weekend, the morning of a game or the night before doing media. Like, it's like, I just think if you're putting it down that media has distracted your attention from performing a game, well, I don't think you have any business really playing at an elite level. Like, I think you're so focused at that stage that you could say anything really, and it's just sound bites. You're saying the same thing over again anyways, that you're laser focused and the opposition are great, and like, I just think sometimes it's obviously the way the culture has gone, that I suppose there is that access to players for the likes of you, like, but I just think, sometimes you're nearly saying more by not doing it. Like, I think, like, what's ultimately wrong? Sorry, what's ultimately wrong with, coming out and having a conversation, really, like, as opposed to like, yeah, I can't do it because I'm playing the season with Galway. Like, it's like, I just think it's probably a bit overkill. Like,
what brought you to that thinking, or has that always been your thinking?
Yeah, that's always, I'd say pretty much always. I think I'd be a person that I wouldn't read newspapers. I'm not on Twitter or TikTok or any of that, so I suppose the media doesn't really bother me that much, so I suppose I just don't really get that caught up in it, I suppose, really. So that's probably why I think that way. I don't know.
Do you watch games back?
Not really. Like, sometimes I might.
Do you think when you finish playing inter-county football or inter-county hurling with Galway that you will be on the terrace every weekend?
I'd say I'll definitely be a big fan. Like, I am a massive Galway hurling fan. I definitely will be. I definitely won't be involved in coaching. I can tell you that much. There's absolutely no chance of that.
Why?
I don't think I've ever heard anybody be so blunt about that.
I just don't have any interest in it. Like, I just, even when I was teaching in school and you'd have to be over the school team and stuff, I just had absolutely no interest in it whatsoever. I'm just someone that very much loves playing the game. Like, and I think that's something that, like, if someone was to ask me, how are you still playing 12 years later, I'd say it's just pure and utter love of the game. Like, I think just the enjoyment of just playing the game. And I think when you stop playing, that enjoyment, I just don't think I get that from coaching. Now, other people do. That's for them. But for me, I just think I will still follow it closely. Will I be there every weekend? I can't guarantee that. But I think I'll definitely be still following it.
Yeah.
Do you like the round robin and the condensed nature of it, or is there a wee bit more room
it's
for?
Okay, to be honest. I think, like, from a player welfare perspective, I think it definitely doesn't help. like, was it last year or the year before, we had to go to Antrim and Wexford 2 weekends in a row. Like, you're just like, I think there's two things with it. I think it gives less chance for players to recover. So if you get injured in the first game of the round robin, your Leinster Championship is probably over, really. And the other part of it is it's definitely gotten rid of the social aspect after games. So when I was first playing the first couple of years, like, you play Leinster quarter-final against Dublin on, say, the 28th of May, and you're not playing again for 3 weeks' time, so you'd all go out together and you'd have a couple of pints. And just, I found that it was very much, there was the game, and then there was the night out afterwards, which was unreal, and then you went back training and you reset and you focus again and you go. Whereas now it's just literally game on game on game, where you're nearly not having the chance to even process a game hardly. So
I actually never really, believe it or not, I actually never really thought of it like that, and that makes total sense. Is, you know, a bit of time to, like, you're in the, like, you arrive for train, you know what it's like. You arrive for training, you know, you do your prep for training individually or whatever. Then you're out onto the pitch, you're back in, you get something to eat, and people are out of there quickly because it's, you know, they're trying to get home because they get off for walk the next day or whatever it is. But I've actually never really thought about it like that. I've always thought about the recovery end of things and how condensed it is. But that is actually a good point, because a lot of bonds are achieved through the time you spend not actually on the pitch. It doesn't have to be points or whatever, but whatever, you know, whatever, whatever way it happens to be.
Like, I think our team in 17, the reason we were so close, like, we went to the Fenway in 2015. Do you remember that 11-a-side thing?
Oh, yeah.
We went on that together. Then in 2017, we went on our team holiday. And then we went to, the following year, we went to San Francisco as well. Like, so we're very close because we spent a lot of time together outside of hurling as well. Like, and I think it definitely makes the group closer and makes it more, like, as you said, you're going training, you're playing a game, like, you're on the bus home, and then that's it. Like, you're not getting as many chances to go out together or even get to know people outside of you know, the performance environment that is training and games.
And I suppose with all games means that it's less training sessions, and the training sessions are not obviously as intense because you're really prepping for the game, but it's probably as close to a professional environment as you get the round robin scenario, like the Premier League in England, where you're playing every weekend, or you're maybe playing league in England, or AFL, for example. That, you know, that's maybe 36 weeks of the year. Whereas that round robin it's probably the only wee window where it does feel like that, instead of maybe, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ahead of the game.
Yeah, it just happens so fast. Like, I think from the moment the league starts, I think it just happens so fast, and then your round robin starts. Like, you have your games in the round robin format, and then if you make a Leinster final, you've that Leinster final in 2 weeks. If you win your Leinster final, you have 4 weeks off. If you lose, you're out again in 2 weeks. So you literally have to process losing a Leinster final, all the analysis of that, and then dust yourself off and go again in the space of 2 weeks for an All-Ireland quarter final against, it's usually a very, very good team. Like, so yeah, it's definitely a challenging format. Now look, there's obviously pluses to it. There's more games, and that was the objective behind it as well. So pros and cons, I suppose, really.
What are you at with yourself at the minute?
I'm working with Castle Group. They're a construction company in Galway. So working in occupational health and wellbeing. So they have about 350 people working for them. So I taught English and history for 3 years, not too far away from here in Ballygar, and just decided I'd go back and go studying again. And
PhD?
Yes, I done a master's in psychology first, and then I just finished up a PhD. So in mental health and wellbeing of elite Gaelic Games student athletes. So anyone who is a full-time student but is on a senior inter-county panel. So I researched the kind of dual career strains they have between balancing academia and sport, and then I designed a mentor and intervention to try and support them in their college.
Right.
Life.
So what's the top 2 or 3 things that you've found out in that research that stand out?
Number one thing is complete misalignment between your sporting institution and your academic institution. So your academia's objective is to educate you. This is your timetable, this is what you're doing. Your sporting calendar says you're training here, here, and here. And you have your 2 weekly timetables. There's no communication between those two stakeholders. And the student athlete is in the middle, and they have to figure out, okay, I'm not going to go to my lecture here because I'm going down training in Galway this evening. I need to be gone by 4 o'clock because traffic's bad. And they basically don't align at all. And the result of it is the student athlete is in the middle and they're just left to manage it themselves, really. So that's the number one challenge, I suppose, really.
Okay.
So sitting there teaching, how do you make the decision to go and do that? Psychology first.
Yeah, I just think I'm a fairly curious person, so was always kind of fascinated with the psychological aspect of both life and sport and all that. And just decided I'd do that and learn as much as I could about it. I'd be fairly open to learning and be curious that way. And then I was like, I always kind of wanted to do, I felt that because I was so interested in the mind and the psychology of it, and then I had a first cousin that passed away from suicide, I felt that I kind of had been pushed into a role where I was being asked about mental health and that sort of space, and I kind of felt that if I am in that space, I'd like to be the most knowledgeable I possibly could be. I felt that, and this is no disrespect, but I felt some people were offer advice on mental health that's very, how should I say, not research based or not, there's no real evidence behind it. And I think that's very, very dangerous. So I suppose those things combined with kind of a curiosity of just exploring and learning, I just felt I was at the perfect age. I think I was 25 or something. I didn't have any major commitments, so just felt that, yeah, let's just go for it. And look, it was very challenging to give up a full-time job, and the amount of people that were telling me about the pension and all this sort of stuff that you're leaving behind. But ultimately, I just felt that it was the right thing to do. And in hindsight, it's turned out to be. So,
what age were you when Niall took his own life?
16. So, yeah,
Was he somebody at that time that you really looked up to, or?
Yeah, he would have been like, he would have, like, my kind of pathway hurling would have been kind of similar to his. Like, I always remember when I was playing under 14 with Galway, like, I wasn't starting on the team, and like that was like the first that's the first taste of inter-county experience, and that was really, really hard because I felt like, you know, that I had the credentials to be starting. And I always remember Niall, like, wasn't playing either, like, when he was under 14, and then he ended up playing 2 years minor. So I was kind of like, Jesus, like, if he can do that, well, then I can do that. And then I ended up playing 2 years minor in the same way he did. And then, like, I used to go to his games to be watching him. He's playing under 21, like, he was marking Kevin Downs. He's playing full back, and they won the All-Ireland that year, like, and Galway actually haven't won one since. But yeah, I just think he showed you what was possible, I suppose, really. Like, I wouldn't have been that close to him, like, I wouldn't have had a very, very close relationship with him, but I think just his pathway and trajectory kind of gave me the belief that it was possible, I suppose, really.
Was there any hint that could have happened, or was that just a complete bolt out of the blue?
It was completely a bolt out of the blue, really. Like, I was so young at that stage that I probably, like at that time, like, suicide wouldn't have been that, I suppose, explicitly of a topic people to talk about. So I didn't really know, like, what it was, or I didn't really know, like, mental health issues. I didn't really know anything about it. Like I can always remember taking out my phone and Googling suicide and, like, not having a clue. Like, and I just think that's mad that I was in school at the age of 16 and had no idea about that topic, but that's just the way it was. And
it's not that long ago. This is 2013.
2013, yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about 1982 here.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just, but like I suppose to answer your question, I think it was more as I got older when I came to like 23 and 24, and I started. My life was I was now living the years that he didn't have. I think that was nearly where I was like, Jesus, like it's mad how much of life he had left to live. Like, and I always even think that, like, even my mother's sister, like Niall's mother, passed away when she was young as well. I think she was 30, like, and just when someone dies that young, like, you just think they've so much of life left to live, but you just, I suppose we all take it for granted in ways, like, but it's just, unfortunately, that's just the way it is.
So Niall's mum died before Niall died?
Yeah, so she died in 1996, so he would have been, I've Oisin McConville maths here now.
Yeah.
Maybe around 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly.
See, it's really interesting that, because my cousin died by suicide, but his mum died when she was young. She was 46. What do you think about it now?
Yeah, like, look, mental health is very, very complex. And like, I suppose sometimes I think we struggle to disentangle, I suppose, general challenges from acute mental illness. And like, I think it's roughly 15% of the population experience acute mental illness where, you know, they have an ongoing clinical issue. Whereas I think a lot of the things I have researched and came across, a lot of them are manageable, and a lot of issues are things in which, if they are addressed in the right way, they can be managed and dealt with, and you can live a very positive life. But I think the issue is when those challenges aren't addressed. I think that's when they're left to linger, they rarely sort themselves out, I suppose, really. So what can start off as a small challenge can basically drive into becoming something much bigger down the line. But I think we've shifted the conversation in Ireland from reaching out for help, and now I think we're at the stage we're aware of the importance of getting help. But I think the help we access and how we go about it is probably what we struggle with now. I think that's how I would conceptualize it, I suppose.
And what do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is I think that there's a lot of different avenues in which you can get help, but I think the right signposting around someone who is struggling with an issue, they know they're struggling with an issue, they know that it's important to talk, they know it's important to reach out, but where exactly do they reach out, and how can they go about getting on the pathway towards getting better? I think when Niall passed away, we didn't know the importance of reaching out. We didn't know what services were there. Now we know that there are services there, but getting access to those services and those services actually being accessible, I think, are what I believe to be the two biggest challenges.
How do you feel about education and maybe early intervention?
Yeah, I think it's so important. I think, like, my background is teaching in schools. I think from my perspective as a teacher, like, I was dealing with mental health challenges, anxiety, stress, etc., on a daily basis in school. I had no training to deal with any of that. It was very much anecdotal as a teacher. You're going off, trying your best, really. And then the issues with CAMS, with students trying to access services there, like, you could be a year waiting for a consultation for a mental health issue, which, like, it sounds absolutely insane, but it's very much real, like. And like, if you think about that, like, that that's the point I'm making, is that you recognize that there's something wrong, you've reached out for help, and now you're told, okay, you have a consultation in a year's time. Like I just think that is such a major issue, like, and I think the consequences of that is huge.
As far as gaining experience, obviously there's a study end of things with gaining experience. You did spend a bit of time in Cuan Mhuire and in Galway.
Yeah, so I spent...
How did you find that?
Yeah, I spent 6 or 7 months. Yeah, I found it very insightful, I suppose. I found it like I was doing a master's in psychology. I found I was learning all this stuff, but landed down in Coolmine, like, I was like, Jesus, like, this is real, like, you know. I found it just like eye-opening, really.
Was that the difference between the textbook, learning it, and feeling it?
100%, yeah, 100%. I think.
And Cuan Mhuire, for people that are not quite aware, Oisín is
Cuan Mhuire is a foundation set up by
Sister
Sister
Concilio.
Concilio. She has treatment centres in all around the country, basically, and growing, and has helped so many people down through the years. And Coolmine, where Conor was, that's where I spent my
Yeah,
13 weeks.
I know. We've been there. We have been there a couple of times. But it's an amazing place now. I mean, I have been there, not the same as you, but definitely not the same as Oisín. But you can pick up the like it's real.
What
Yeah.
what really hit you when?
I think selfishly speaking, I think you realise that, you know, I'm going down training here and you're worried about your first touch, or you're worried about this or that, and then you go in there and you see the level that someone's life has come to be honest. I think just you have a massive appreciation for your own life, and I suppose how lucky you are to be able to hop in your car and drive out that driveway. Like, I found the people down there so nice. All the facilitators were so helpful. And I found all the people down there to be very, very nice, like, to be really all at different stages of their journey, all going through their own different things. And to be honest with you, I found it fairly similar to a school setting in ways. I found a lot of them were actually at the maturity level of students or children. And I found that, I suppose I had a massive appreciation for people that just put up their hand and said, look, I'm not well, I'm going in here and I'm going to give it a shot. And like most of them, like not most of them, but a lot of them don't know what they're coming out to, really. And it makes you understand that, you know, all the things we're told in life about, you know, getting your house and getting your steady job and all this stuff like that, a lot of the time, you know, you can have all this here, but in the background there can be other things going on that can rip all that away from you. And I suppose that the biggest thing I would have seen was the detrimental impact on families, and like the in-service on Tuesday where people check in like to start their program, and you just see the families coming and you see the toll that's on them, and just the pain it causes. And yeah, I suppose just the challenge that it is, like you see the challenges people are facing up to when they decide to walk in that door, and you know, they're ultimately on a journey. And the maddest thing about it is it's only the start of the journey, and you know, you do your 13 weeks or your 20 weeks, but you know, from my experience, that's very much a sheltered experience where everything is laid on for you and you're in kind of a safe space. And then unfortunately you see people who you've seen, you know, before come back in, and you know, ultimately I think I'm saying this anecdotally, but I think from research is it you're almost guaranteed to fail the first time, from what I've come to understand. And then I went down a rabbit hole looking at statistics on it, and you know, I think is it 94% of people that is in the weekly program will fail the program, as in they will break down and be back in. So I had massive respect for the facilitators for sticking to the process, and even though, you know, those statistics are there, they still afford everyone the same opportunity. They're very robust in that it is what it is, like, and that was really insightful for me, in that from a teaching perspective, I'd always try and develop a relationship with a student, and you know, you'd want them to work with you, whereas the facilitators, I found, this is the program, this is what it is, if you want to do it, great, and if you don't, well, there's only one person who's going to lose out. And I suppose they're saying that out of a place where they've seen people come in that have thought they could do it on their own, and then they ultimately break down. And yeah, the whole psychology of it is fascinating, really.
I remember hearing that figure of the figure that they had at that time was 7% of success.
Yeah.
So, can I ask a very unpopular question? I don't want this to come across as offensive, and it probably is, but I'm halfway there, so I might as well spit it out.
Go.
You're a teacher, and if you had a 7% success rate in your class, you wouldn't be deemed a good teacher. Now, I know that's very simplistic, and I know that it feels very loaded in that way. The overwhelming majority are going to fail. So that, I would question, can we not do that better? Right? Did I offend you by saying that? I'm sorry.
No, definitely not at all. Not even the slightest. But the 7%, like, this is the thing I think people need to realise is the 7% was not Cuan Mhuire and Galway. The 7% was an overall recovery.
Yeah.
And that goes for if you're spending 100 grand or you're spending 3 grand. And as you say, first time around, for a lot of people, they get it maybe second time or third time, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's just the challenge of it, really.
Yeah.
And I think Cuan Mhuire, they take in absolutely everyone. So you don't have to have, they don't charge massive fees to take people in.
Yeah.
So they're taking everyone from someone who's sleeping on the street in Galway. So, I just think, as Oisín said, it is the size of the challenge is that it's real, that whether it's 6 or 7%, that ultimately, I suppose, even within that 6 or 7%, there's still hope there. And I actually know people who've come through the program, both they would be friends of mine.
Yeah.
And I also seen it from being down there that you've seen people that went in and just completely changed their life around. So I suppose it provides hope as well.
Yeah, but isn't that maybe then the point? Then it's just how difficult it is to achieve that success. Like, you're coming out of playing junior hurling and you're thrown onto the Galway team at full forward in All-Ireland final. You're probably going to fail.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that the Galway team or the environment isn't brilliant. It is just the jump that you have to make, the sense of accomplishment, so difficult.
The interesting thing about Cuan Mhuire is all their facilitators are people who've been through the program.
Yeah.
So
I've met a number of them, and the bit that always sticks with me is, and we can name him because he's very public with his story, Tim O'Mahony.
Yeah, that's him.
From Kerry.
Yes.
And a lovely, lovely man, and has walked that journey, and certainly was counselling in Cuan Mhuire.
Still is, yeah.
Still is, right? And he was talking about bringing his son to the All-Ireland final. I think it was the one you were playing in 2002. Big Kerry man, bringing the son there. We're looking forward to it. We're buzzing. Like, you think about it, that is the Mecca. And the son said to him, sure, come on, we'll just go on home now at half-time, because Tim wasn't present at the game. His mind was elsewhere. He was in the depths of it at that stage. And there are much more horrific stories around addiction than that. I absolutely take that. But for me, I just thought that you go with your dad to the football match, your county's playing an All-Ireland final, and it's not the dad, it's the son spots the dad's not present. Look, come on, we'll just go on home now. And to me, I wrestle with this in my mind, because there is much more traumatic impacts from addiction than that. But I can't get that out of my mind, because that makes no sense to a normal person, whatever that is. And even that term is
that is the
loaded.
term, really, isn't it? It doesn't make sense to me or you, but it very much makes sense to somebody who's lived it. That's what I've come to realise from.
Normally, when you get into Cuan Mhuire, it's very difficult to get out. I'm talking about to do this sort of thing that you were doing, as in, and I know how impressed and how much they loved you down there. But did you ever feel, I wouldn't mind doing this, but also in the back of your mind thinking, I think I could have more of an effect doing the earlier stuff?
Yeah, I think, it definitely entered your mind where you're thinking, I definitely could have an impact here. But Yeah, I suppose you see the way Cuan Mhuire goes at it is very much from it's a Catholic, like a Catholicism absent, like total, like what's the terminology, like it's total
Abstinence, yeah.
Yeah, total absence. And yeah, I suppose if you're coming at it, maybe I think your point about coming at it earlier, I think would be an interesting space around the psychology, and like they don't really delve as much into that as such. Now the method they have is like it obviously speaks for itself, but I was kind of left with two theories. One was that the brain disease model, where they just think that you're basically born with this and you have an addictive brain and that's it.
Predisposed, yeah.
And then the other one I was left with was adherent learning, it was called, where you basically developed a toxic trait and that's what it is, and you need to retrain your mind. So I looked at that and said, if I was going at that, how would I go about it? And I was like what you said, I was thinking earlier on and working with them from probably more from the psychology part of it. I think Cuan Mhuire is very much on the habitual behaviour part, I'd say. But yeah, look, I think everyone probably has different views on it, but yeah, I found it very, very interesting, and yeah.
Well, where you're at, working, with the people working in construction, I mean, you're seeing all levels of society there, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's construction industry is the highest rate of mental health challenges in any industry in Ireland. I suppose before I started working there, I wasn't that aware of, I suppose, just how challenging it is. And look, at the number one challenge there is you have things that need to get built in a certain amount of time, and the stress that comes from having to fulfill that program within the space of, say, 12 weeks or 14 weeks. And as soon as you get that done, you're on to the next one, and just the challenges that come with that. And then people have underlying issues, alcoholism, drugs. Obviously you're coming from a number of different cultures on site, and massive variance between people working on site versus in the office. And it's a huge area, I suppose. Yeah, so I'd work in the office, so you'd basically be available for anyone that would have any issues. So say somebody might be struggling with financial challenges. So my role is if it's within my expertise, I'll support them. And then I basically designed a framework within CAS Group that CAS Group will cover 10 free sessions of any area you want if you require help. So say you're struggling with financial challenges, I will set up a meeting with a financial advisor for you, who you have 10 free sessions covered with Castle Group.
Right.
So that removes the financial barrier of that, and it also means that I'm signposting you to the right area for you specifically to get that support.
Okay.
And then you'd be doing monthly workshops, you'd be doing on-site visits where you'd be going through different things that are trending at the moment, like burnout or travel or different topics like that. And then there's a mental health and wellbeing space, but I don't like to be just stuck in that space all the time, because I find it's and I'm sure you're aware of this, is that
quite heavy,
very draining and very heavy. So I like to be I'm in that space, but I'm also in the business development and do other pieces as well.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, I think when I started out, I kind of always said, geez, I'd love to be a clinical psychologist. And then the further I got into this journey, I was kind of I don't think I'd like to be doing that 5 days a week. I think I find it pretty heavy, and I just think being able to almost hybrid it and have other bits with it as well,
Yeah.
I find works best for me. But that's just why.
I admire your ability to pivot and change, because the older you get, that can be more challenging. You're you go to study teaching. You're a qualified teacher.
He's only 29, remember?
I know that. I was talking about myself. I was talking about myself. But I do admire that in people. You know,
We're sounds of having a conversation on the way up the road. You're not here. But the easiest thing in the world really would have been you to stay on as a teacher.
Yeah.
It fits in obviously around the hurling and those commitments. And you know, as I said, not that teaching's easy, but it would have been an easy thing for you to do was to stay in that profession. But definitely loads of admiration for you and I'm sure you're having a massive effect on the people that you are dealing with day in, day out.
Yeah, I think you always have to think about afterwards as well, like when you finish playing, like what are you going to do, and there's two things I always say is that I don't want to look back and say that I want to do it differently, and I want to look back in the hurling and say that I gave it everything I had. And I think if you have those two things and you can say them to yourself and it's true, then I think I'll be in a pretty decent space. So.
And if Galway give it everything that they have, is there a glass ceiling, Conor?
I don't think so. I think it's very much.
I mean, the narrative at the minute seems to be moving towards, it's Kilkenny or it's Limerick and Cork. We may have been saying Kilkenny to you boys weeks ago did a master class, in fairness, but they're going to come back again, as we all know, and that seems to be the narrative out there. Like you would have picked up on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about narratives. I think they're always willing to change, aren't they?
Well, it's good to hear you say that, because the automatic thing a player would have said if I framed the question like that would be, they're
going well.
You just said there, well, look, I'm not worried about narratives. There was just a wee inner spark that just...
Yeah, look, I think, I always think with elite level sport that the margins are so fine. I just think, on any given day, if you show up, you have the work done and it clicks, I think you're never going to be far away. And I think we're in a decent space in Galway. Look, it's early days yet. There's obviously major hurdles to come, but I'm fairly positive, enthusiastic, and looking forward to this, I suppose, really, yeah.
Good man. Good to hear from a 38-year-old fella saying such a thing. Brilliant. It's good. It was great. I really enjoyed that, and that did not feel like a podcast. It just felt that we went... I really, really enjoyed that.
I was thinking when he said, thinking about what he's going to do after he finished playing football, he could end up on a podcast with Boyf and Derry. That wasn't in the plan. This was not in the plan. Yeah. Just sort
but a lot of Oisín's life hasn't been in the plan.
Has any of it been in the plan, no?
In fairness. But you know what? Here he's...
I can't decide what I want to do when I grow up.
Our kid's done all right, but
no, look at it. As I said, a lot of people come to your line of work through experience from before. Like you said about the facilitators in Cuan Mhuire, so you have a certain degree of experience, lived experience, and that's important. And everybody has it. Everybody has a different lived experience, but I think that's probably... essential in the work that you're doing now, and just best of luck and thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, man. And that is a really nice point, because if you didn't have the gambling addiction, would that have led you into that path? Probably not. The majority of people, we talked about the great Tim O'Mahony there, and he came in through that way. Most people do. You didn't really, Conor. I know Niall's death. There's obviously a huge impact in that, but I think it says a lot about you that you're curious. I was watching an interview recently, Tommy Tiernan's show, just a couple of days ago. Again, it was a rerun. Michael D. Higgins, former president of Ireland. Oh, yeah. He just said, "Stay curious." Just thought it's good, man. It's good way in which to finish upon it. Go well for the rest of the season, fella. Good luck with it all, and we'll see what way 2026 unfolds for Galway and yourself. We talk about the signposting and the BBC Action Line quite a lot, Oisín, with some of the more in-depth interviews that we do. But tell you what, Conor has definitely put the pressure upon me here, just talking about the importance of that messaging and how crucial that is. So look, if you've been affected by anything you've listened to there, really useful BBC Action Line filled with really good signposting. So look, do check it out if you've been triggered in any way with some of the conversation topics we've hit upon today. It's at bbc.co.uk/action line. So it's bbc.co.uk/action action line. So from Conor Whelan, Oisín McConville and myself, thanks for listening.